Hey, podcast listeners. The Follow Friday conference is in just over a month, and that has had us thinking about the key pillars of Follow Friday: inclusive, open-minded, supportive, resourceful, innovative, collaborative, and hopeful. On this episode of LISI's All the Things podcast, 3 things, we wanted to talk about 3 of them: collaboration, innovation, and support, and their importance in our professional and personal lives. I am your host this week, Taryn Elliott, the Director of Client Success and Marketing at LISI, and I am joined by my LISI colleagues, Caskey, Legal Content Writer and Editor, and Rae Ritter, Director of Client Service and Marketing. So here is 3 things this episode of LISI's All the Things podcast. Check it out. Hey everybody, welcome to our live stream. This week we are doing a 3 things, and we are talking about collaboration, innovation, and support. If you don't know, the Follow Friday conference, which is being led by Robin Addis, will be coming up here on International Women's Day. I think that is March 8th. And as part of that, we are here talking today about collaboration, innovation, and support, which are 3 of the pillars of the Follow Friday conference. In the coming weeks, you will be seeing blog posts come out from each of us on each of those topics, but we thought we would dig into each of those and the importance they play, not just in our professional lives, but our personal lives. So I'm Taryn Elliott, the Director of Client Success and Marketing here at LISI, and I am joined today on this live stream by Caskey, the Legal Content Editor and Writer at LISI, and Rae Ritter, the Director of Client Service and Marketing. So welcome, ladies. Thank you so much for joining me today. We all wore green for good luck, or for the Phillies fan, of which Rae is the only one of us who resides in Philly at the moment. Green for the Eagles. So very exciting couple of weeks, very animated chats in the LISI team chats, as there are a lot of Eagles fans in our team chats. So I think maybe we should change our LISI logo to green for the next 2 weeks in honor of the Eagles. I'll get that approved by Rob and get Leslie right on that. Well, rather than talking about the weather or our green, let's jump right in. These are 3 topics that I'm really excited about. I know the 3 of us were all excited to be able to write about them. And I think that we'll have a lot to talk about, a lot to share. These are 3 things that are important to us at any point in our life. We were talking just before we got on about, some of us with kids, like sometimes these are things we're having as conversations with teens or tweens, or, how we handled things in college. So it's not something that you just deal with in your professional life, that you just deal with at a certain age, but the importance of collaboration, innovation, and support at all parts of your life. So our first topic is collaboration. That's our first thing today. And Rae is going to jump into the topic of collaboration for us. So Rae, whenever you're ready.
Thanks. So I thought it was interesting we were talking about the Eagles, and, we're headed to the Super Bowl, so we're stoked about that. But I mean, it's a clear example of collaboration. Like all of the people on the offense, the defense, special teams, like all having to work together when they're out on the field, off the field, like all the coaches, the fans, right? Like it has to be all these things going on at the same time, all working and striving for this common goal. And if you didn't have collaboration, I think I saw some stuff in the news about another team where players were upset at each other for, one thing or another. In the end, it's all about collaboration and working together to really get to that common goal. And when we first talked about this topic, actually the first thing that came to my mind was not the Eagles, but it was, in high school and getting assigned those group projects, and you have to be on a group and you get assigned your classmates. And I hated that because I always thought there's going to be a weak link on our team, on our group, and they're going to bring our grade down, and I'm going to have to work extra hard to maintain it. And it just was not my strong suit at that time to work in a team for school. Even though I was an athlete and on the field, it was right in my, wheelhouse. But so that kind of led me to this, with this subject matter, to think about, why we at LISI talk a lot about, like, let's not have a meeting for the sake of a meeting. Let's not collaborate for the sake of collaboration, but what are the true reasons that you would want to collaborate? And, it just, as I thought about that, it kind of brought up some things that maybe are not so top of mind. One that I thought was pretty important is building and strengthening relationships. That's certainly important, within your organization, or perhaps you have an opportunity to collaborate with someone outside your organization. Maybe it's a service provider, or maybe it's a peer at another firm on a speaking engagement or a panel or something like that. And in collaborating on a common goal, on a project, on a program, you will naturally strengthen your relationship with them, and then be able to, tap that relationship and build on it for future things. So that's one reason I thought that, that collaboration is so important. Another, with respect to projects, like within your organization, is earning buy-in. So something that came to mind for that was, if you are trying to, get something, let's say like a budget approved, getting the other folks who would benefit from that involved from the start, so that, they collaborate early on, and then they're already supporters of the project from the very beginning, because you've included them from the beginning. Another, it's probably one of the most obvious reasons, like, why would you collaborate? Is to get more diverse experience, perspectives and skills. Because there's probably people in your team who you think, well, we had a similar path. We had similar education to, in our background. And then we worked in maybe similar types of firms. So we're really coming at this from the same angle, whatever your challenge is, or your project, or whatever. But the truth is, you do have different perspectives. And by collaborating on something, you're kind of broadening the scope for what you'll, for what you'll do on that project. And I was thinking of like a Venn diagram. It's not the part in the middle that's the important part of collaboration. It's like the circles take up more space, so you have more access to more points of view and perspective and skills. Candidly, I think of the, within our team at LISI, we have this, broad group of really smart people, but folks have different skill sets. So when we work together, I think that really results in a better end product. And then a couple other things that I thought were kind of interesting is, especially in context of the Follow Friday conference, when you collaborate with other folks, you have the opportunity to grow yourself and to learn from other people's styles, or techniques, or there could be, it could be like really rote skills, like learning how to do, something very technical by collaborating with someone, or just, what is someone's project style? And that, then you're growing through collaboration. And kind of the flip side of that, if you collaborate with folks on your team who are perhaps not as tenured as you, you have an opportunity to really raise up other people when you collaborate with them and teach them something, your experience, and share your experience. So I think, it seems kind of intuitive, we should collaborate, but if your knee-jerk reaction is like, oh, geez, this is going to take longer, or it's going to be harder, it's still there's probably a lot more benefit than not. So I think back to that high school project, I think in the end, probably the teacher who assigned the groups was thinking, some variety of these things, maybe that weak link is brought up and is learning from their peers, or maybe I was gaining some perspective from, other folks as well. I hope so. So
I am a firm believer that they do group projects, because as I say as an adult now, having done them and having kids, I'm always like, you need to learn how to work with people. Like, not a day goes by that we don't somehow need to work as a team, whether that is, day to day and on the work we do for LISI, whether that is, in the evenings with your spouse or your partner about, raising your kids, whether that's at a board meeting for a charity that you are volunteering for. Like, whatever it is, I mean, it could be planning a vacation with your best friend. Like, you still need to work. And, from a professional perspective, but really any of those things, and you kind of talked about this, I think one of the best things about collaboration is that you bring your different styles and your different perspectives, and not just to learn from it, but to make sure that everything is covered. So I know we talk on the
Mhm.
LISI team, Rae and I have a pretty similar approach to new projects, to new things that we're taking on, whereas a couple other members of our team have the opposite approach. And it's really important for all of us together to bring that balance, to
Mhm.
to have all those pieces together, so that way, if it was just Rae and I, we would probably spend a lot of time talking through things. And what
Mhm. Yeah.
might be for some people a 1 month launch would probably be a 3 month launch for us, as we covered every single thing. Whereas some other members of our team would, have it launched 2 weeks later and then be like, ooh, crap, didn't think of a couple of those things, and now we need to adjust on the fly. And it's
Mhm.
finding that middle ground, because I feel like 2020 was the year that I was like, we're better together. We're better when we work together.
Oh, yeah. Mhm. Yep, the outcome is definitely better together.
I've seen more and more with our team as well, that even on projects that, there may be a core group of people that are collaborating together in the team, they'll reach out to our wider LISI team. We'll have a chat where, like, what's your opinion on this image for this marketing campaign? And there have been quite a few instances there where someone else has come in with, no, that's really no good, because that's really associated with this other thing which is not PC. Or, from my personal experience, that's really triggering, and I don't think you should use that for that personal injury campaign. And there have been a lot of kind of life experiences and just life knowledge, because we do all have different backgrounds, that we really draw on, as a broader team.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is you have to be careful to avoid groupthink. You think, well, I'm being agreeable, or I'm being, going along with everything. We're all rowing in the same direction. But in the end, the benefit is bringing another perspective and flagging something that might seem, like you said, triggering or problematic for some reason that someone else just didn't even know about, or it didn't kind of raise a flag for them.
Yeah. And I think that says a lot about building the team and learning how to have those conversations, that it's a safe environment for somebody to say, I don't agree with that for this reason. Or have you considered this? I know it might not be popular, but I want to make sure that we talk it through. Because if I'm thinking it, someone else might be thinking it as well, whether that is someone on our team or a client. And I just had this conversation with a friend the other day, like learning how to have those conversations and the language to use, so that way we can get to the best outcome, versus, like what you said, groupthink, because everybody's like, oh, well, if I say that, I'm just going to get yelled at, or, I'm probably the only one, so I don't want to speak up. Like, that has its own set of problems. But part of those problem is, I don't want to say dysfunction of the team, but a slight mismatch of the team if you don't feel like you can say that. And that actually speaks a lot to leadership as well, which also we'll get a lot of at Follow Friday. But even when you're younger, just kind of starting to learn how to have that language around, I want to share this perspective and let's talk about it. So that way we have a path forward that is the right path forward for our group.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you, Rae, for talking about collaboration. Our second thing this week is going to be innovation. And innovation is the topic that I tackled. And I'm not going to lie, I signed up for it. And then I was like, ooh, like, I think you think team, you think a lot of things, you think collaboration, you think support, all those kind of things. And my first thought when I thought innovation was like these big ideas and things that changed the world. And that was really scary for me. And I kind of sat with that for a while. I looked up the definition of innovation. Innovation is a new idea, method, or device. It's a novelty, or it's the introduction of something new. And when I really kind of started thinking about how innovation impacts our lives on a day-to-day basis and its importance, I really got comfortable with the idea that innovation is the big and the little things. It can be something that you develop in your professional life. It can be something you develop in your personal life. It doesn't have to be like, ooh, I invented the automobile and changed the world. It can be something as simple as I approached billing for our projects differently, and now I offer another alternative, and that's a differentiator. And that's a real world example from someone I know where they made a different approach to how they were billing clients, and it opened up a whole new realm of reasons why people might hire that firm. It was meeting a need in the marketplace that no one else was seeing at the time. And I think that's really important to wrap your head around, that innovation can be anything as long as it's, a new idea, a new method, or a new device. And it's really woven into, like I said, everything we do. It's the products you develop at work. It's the careers you carve out. It's the way you show up for your friends and your family. It's how you contribute to your communities. It can be, how you parent a child, how you lead a meeting like we were just talking about. But what innovation isn't is falling back into the familiar patterns that we all know, or it's taking the easiest path forward and doing what's always done. And I know for a lot of my peers, the kiss of death is when you're sitting in a meeting and someone says, but we've always done it this way. That's just what we do. And, that's an instance where innovation isn't happening. And that's actually the perfect time to take a step back and ask what I think is the primary tenet of innovation is, what is another way we can achieve our desired outcome? And what I really ask myself a lot, and I'll say this to my team or to my husband or to some of the committees I serve on, is and this is a hard conversation to sometimes have, but like some version of this isn't working, or we might think this is working, but the perception is that something is broken about this. And instead of piling on all the negativity about why that is, like, let's leave that there and let's take a step back and really, the only goal here is to think of another way to approach this. So we know that that's what we need. We know we need a solution that gets us to the same outcome or possibly even a better outcome. But that's all we're thinking about right now is how can we do this? And honestly, that doesn't generally happen in that meeting. And it doesn't happen because you did a whiteboard or mind mapping. Usually it's on the drive home or in the shower the next morning. You're like, oh, this is a new approach. And then it's having that conversation and that collaboration, and as we'll get to in a minute, that support among a team to say, oh, there is a different way that we can do this. And we're better for it because that innovation, it sets us up for success, which is important. The world is constantly evolving. It's constantly changing. And if we don't change, we risk becoming stagnant, but it's what differentiates us. It's the thing that somebody can say, oh, she's doing it different, or he's doing it different, or, that company is doing it different. I want to learn more about that. I want to be a part of that. And, I think sometimes in my own world, I learned that there was a different way to tie your shoes when I had small children. It was an innovation. I had no idea there were other ways to tie your shoe. And I was able to teach my very young child to tie his shoes. And I was like, oh, this is great. And now it allows me to have my own kid tie his shoes every day. And that saved, part of the stress of getting out of the house in the morning with, a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. And then it was something that people are like, oh, your kid ties his shoes in a different way. Tell me more about that. And then it made somebody else's life easier. And we didn't create the automobile. We didn't create AI. We didn't create all of the uses that people have come up with AI. We just learned how to tie our shoes in a different way. And it still serves him 10 years later, even though I tried teaching him the normal way. But innovation can be really hard. And so I think part of figuring out how to incorporate innovation in your life is thinking through like what you can do for that. So part of incorporating innovation is setting and managing goals in order to manage your future. These can be short-term goals, long-term goals, like reach for the stars, or even like very small things like I'm going to do my laundry on Monday every week, so it's done for the week. Another thing that I think is really important about innovation is to just open yourself up to other ideas, read, have discussions with people, listen to podcasts, watch TED Talks, like whatever it might be. And not just in, your narrow field or in your narrow community, but everywhere, because that's the best place to find ideas that you can then say, oh, if I just make these few tweaks or combine these couple things, I can do something revolutionary in my life. Learn something new. I think it's kind of like being open, but like just practicing the skill of learning something, because really that's what innovation is. It's learning something and applying it somewhere else. But be open to failure. Like, I think that is one of the things that can kind of turn people off from trying something new to trying to innovate, is that there is the risk of failure. And, using Rae's sports analogy earlier, and we'll go with football teams. There's a couple other really good examples. Football teams don't run the same plays every year. They don't throw the ball the same way. They're working to come up with different ways that'll get them to the end zone faster, or ways that will make them kick further. Whatever it is, like, that's their innovation. That's their differentiator. They might fail, but if they succeed, the payoff can be great. So, and finally, strive to be the best version of yourself, whether it's at work or at home, your personal life, whatever you're doing. Like, life's too short to not constantly be saying, like, how can I make this better? So that way the time I have is enjoyable no matter what I'm doing. So innovation, it's imperative for success, but honestly, like, it just makes things better. And it's really easy to implement on small scale if you're just open to the thoughts on it.
And one thing you said that kind of struck me, innovation doesn't have to be a net new thing. It can be a new way of doing something. Like you said with the shoelace example, you didn't invent shoelaces or tying your shoes. You just started applying a different technique to something in a new way. So I think that's something interesting, because like when, we talk about like, oh, our website is innovative or something, like, well, we didn't invent the website. We didn't invent the concept of animation. We didn't invent the concept of branding, but, doing things in a new way. And one other thing I wanted to add that struck me about what you were saying, if something is failing, then you need to innovate to fix it. I think even more difficult than that is if something is succeeding, but you could innovate to make it better, or like that it's satisfying the need, but is there an opportunity to succeed, to innovate and make it even better? I think it can be harder to find buy-in when you're trying to kind of take it up a notch, if it's always worked, if we've always done it that way. So there's definitely challenges like to innovate.
And I think that's something I struggled with when I was sitting down to work on this concept, is it doesn't have to be, to your point, big. It doesn't have to be fixing something that's irretrievably broken. And, it's still finding that motivation, though, to make those changes, and kind of what's the root of that. So I'm not saying you have to sit down and be like, I'm going to go from, coordinator to CEO, and here's my big plan. It's as simple as, I want to move to the next level, or I want to learn a new skill, so what I'm doing today is even better. And really sitting and getting comfortable with that, because that, yes, to your point, success is probably the biggest barrier to innovation. And I was as I was working on this and in my notes, and I'll talk about this a little bit, like one of the worst things is like we didn't see it coming. You don't necessarily have to see it coming, but you have to be innovating so that way you can adjust and have that culture of innovation. So that way, when you are in those situations where you're like, ooh, there's a threat here, however big or small, you're comfortable with working through how to get past that.
This is going to sound like a total plug, but in looking at the Follow Friday conference and listening to everything you're saying, there are so many features of the conference that I really think Robin has thought innovatively about. You know, from the idea that it's not limited to one industry. You know, we're all used to industry conferences, but it has people from across all industries, women and allies from across all industries. And little features like, I know they're organising a room for nursing mothers, a separate private room for that. I love the feature of having like mock interviews. They have interview panels for people at all levels. And that was another thing, is the fact that it's for people at every level of an industry, whether you're just starting out, doing an MBA, re-entering the workforce as I did, or people at, you know, the highest levels of leadership in an organization. They're like, they've really thought about how to cater to all these people while also giving them the opportunity to network with each other and collaborate, you know, and kind of support each other through the day.
Yeah, just simple changes, innovative ways to do things you learn somewhere else that you can apply in a way to what you're doing. So I really love that about the Follow Friday conference, and really seeing kind of how we've all been weaving this. I think we've probably had a greater awareness about this, you know, as we've been building our team, and holding each other accountable to asking those questions as well. So that brings us to our third thing for this week, and that is support. And so I will let Anne share where she is thinking about support right now.
Yes, well, I took on the task of thinking about supportiveness, and for me, I immediately thought about kind of my personal support network. Though there really is a very personal and a professional side to this. And what I thought about as well was, through the COVID pandemic, that separation completely exploded. You know, everybody suddenly needed this huge overlap in their personal and their professional support networks. But for me, again, my personal support network was the first one I thought of, and such as the friend who kind of swooped in to take my kids for the day when I had an unexpected snow day a few days before I had to sit the bar exam, and, you know, swoop them off, like, what would I have done otherwise, you know? Or the friend who just listened to me as I suffered through studying for the bar exam while she was going through kind of re-entering the workforce as well, who incidentally is speaking at the Follow Friday conference, Megan Davis Hill, so a great friend and a great speaker, former lawyer and now a writer. So that she was part of my personal network, without whom I may not have been able to regain that professional side of my life and come back to the workforce. And the other thing that randomly kind of came to my mind when I was thinking about supportiveness was a story I heard a while back of staffers at the White House back in the Obama administration, female staffers who took on this policy amongst themselves in meetings, that when one of them said something, the other one would then repeat it and credit the original speaker with what they said. It was this amplification policy. And so by doing that, they were amplifying each other's voices, because the men very much had a stronger presence and a stronger voice in the room. And it really worked over the months and the years to give women a greater role in that administration and in those meetings. And I thought it was really, it was such a simple thing to do. And I love to see that those women were supporting each other to raise up women as a whole. And in kind of looking that story back up, I came across the fact that female senators have actually had quarterly bipartisan dinners for years. They've all gotten together. It has broken down in the more polarized political atmosphere we've had in recent elections, but they for years got together every quarter to meet and discuss and support each other, despite the fact they were from opposite sides of the aisle. And I just think that's huge, and it's something we should be doing in every sphere. But my kind of thoughts and my personal stories weren't the only ones I wanted to think about for this. So I did collaborate and reach out to other people to to find out their experiences and their examples of support or lack of support. And it was interesting, the things that people came back with. Like, one was really kind of the boss perspective. He said it can be as simple as saying you did a good job, which is when your supervisor, when your superior tells you you've done a good job, like, keep doing it. It really lifts you up and keeps you going. Or what can I do to help you? And that is really where the overlap of professional and personal, I think, can come in. Because what can I do to help you from your boss or from your peer can mean, like, for my own personal experience, I need to just stop. Like, I had the experience in LISI where I have to jump on a plane because I have a sick parent. I just need everybody to take everything. And LISI, my team jumped in and did that. That support allows me to still work and allowed me to spend family time, it's huge. And I think women, especially of the sandwich generation, looking after kids and parents, really need to lean on support like that and need to have that available to them in their working and their personal lives. One story I loved from a woman who has been working for many years, this story goes back over 20 years, which is relevant because she was really starting out in her career, and she was working with a small team who really supported her, trained her, and they're all a little older and more experienced and were really helping her along. But the day came when she had to go into her boss to tell them she was pregnant with her first child. And for a lot of people, that can be nerve-wracking because they don't know what the reaction is going to be. And she had 2 male bosses, and their reaction was to say, take as much time as you need. We will be here. We will support you. She took a year of extended maternity leave. They supported her all through it. She wasn't ready to come back. They arranged remote work, part-time work. And this was over 20 years ago when remote work was certainly not a thing. And the technology wasn't there for it either. And she said that really determined her career path and really made a difference for her and how she would treat other people going forward as well. And what you would expect out of jobs going forward when you've had that kind of supportive atmosphere. And it really made her feel comfortable in her own self and her own career and her own personal life. The last thing I want to mention was not about being made feel comfortable and supported, is being made uncomfortable and supported. And I'll call you out on this, Taryn, because you did say to me about how support can sometimes mean pushing you out of your comfort zone and encouraging you to do something that maybe you're not really feeling too comfortable doing. For example, speaking on a live podcast or a live stream. But when you have the team or the boss there behind you to say, look, you can do this, you've got this, and we're here. If things kind of start to fall apart, it's okay. We're here, you've got this. That support can be just as important, pushing you out of your comfort zone to keep succeeding and kind of raise you up.
I think that's interesting. One thing that you said that made me just think of this, like that we should be looking for ways to support each other, that like to seek out those opportunities to raise up other people. And I think it's something we probably do sometimes, but we should probably pull up to the top of the list to put that, to look for, think about like little things in your day-to-day, like opening the door for someone pushing a stroller or something, or like helping a person that you see. But in the workplace, not only in your own organization, but in, peer firms, peer organizations, looking for ways to help other people. Like, hey, that might be a good person on this speaking panel. That might be the like not so comfort zone, or, I have this potential lead. I have like a referral for you. If I give it to you, it'll like really make you look great at work. Like, I think that's a great thing to keep top of mind.
And I like what you said about the Obama administration and the point of amplifying people's voices. Follow Friday is, of course, discusses women, but it is for anyone. And there is a lot of talk about women amplifying women's voices, but it's really important no matter who you are. Sometimes you just need somebody to say, yes, I hear you, and, I'm going to spread this far and wide. And kind of related to that as well, and to what you were saying about how we support people, one of the things that I've always heard is, praise publicly and like reprimand privately. And we don't need to talk about the reprimanding part, although there are a lot of really good ways, there's a lot to unpack there too, and a lot of ways that you can do that right, and a lot of ways you can do that wrong. But praising people publicly is something I always try to do. Like, oh, I'm really glad that you liked that blog, that was so-and-so's idea. Or, something as simple as, we did a small video for our holiday card, and it was our intern. And I said, like, I want to raise her up. And like, so it very deliberately to the entire team said, we're launching this, and, great work to our intern, and, by name. And I think those are kind of small ways that we can support people. And then, of course, there are bigger ways too, to get people to be the best versions of themselves, whether professionally or, even personally, like having dinner with some girlfriends and be like, hey, did you know so-and-so did this really cool thing at work? Because she's not going to talk about it. I I randomly knew about it, for whatever reason. And I just think, to Rae's point, if we incorporate these things in big and small ways in our life, and it doesn't take time or effort to do that, like that's how we get to a place where people feel seen, where people feel supported, where people feel, their hard work's paid off, and it's acknowledged that they have contributed something. So, well, I want to thank both of you for your support and collaboration on this live stream. Even a bit of innovation. We kind of went in a slightly different direction from how we normally do this, but I love how it turned out. I love how we, accomplished the goals we set out to accomplish. We did it in a little bit different way. So the Follow Friday conference, you can register for it online now. It is March 8th, 2023 in Philadelphia. And we would love to see all of you there. We hope you enjoyed this podcast. Thanks again to Anne and Rae for joining me this week. I know I've kind of been slowly pushing them out of their comfort zones to get them here, but I'm really excited. And I do that because someone lovingly did that to me too. But I'm really excited with, what we've done. And I hope to see all of you next week on our Ask Me Anything live stream. Dan Martin and I will be answering all your questions about podcasts. So I hope that everyone has a great weekend, and we'll see you here next week. Bye, everybody.
You have been listening to All the Things, the podcast from Legal Internet Solutions Incorporated, where we bring you all the things. Whether it's 3 things we learned, hearing from a legal marketing insider, an Ask Me Anything session, or that one more thing we've been dying to tell you all month long, but couldn't. That's all the things. Our next episode will be out in a week wherever you get your podcasts. And you can join us for the live events every Friday at 12:30 Eastern on our LinkedIn channel for our live stream where we bring you all the things live.